in the Department of Sociology, University of Colombo, and the Department of Social Sciences, Sabaragaon University of Sri Lanka from 2007 to 2011. He earned his GA honors in sociology in 2006 and MA in 2011 from the University of Kerala. Subsequently, he has earned his MPhil mastery in urban anthropology in 2016 from the same university. In 2024, he earned his PhD in social work at Belgrade University in the Czech Republic. His areas of expertise are the violence, suicide, and self-harm, urban space and development, development studies, and social policy. Sir, thank you in advance for willing to spend your valuable time to enlighten us on research processes and methodologies.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. Yeah, so no need to have a introduction to myself because he gave a nice introduction. Thank you. I don't know your name, please. Your name, please? Krishan. Yeah, thank you, Krishan, for your nice introduction. Yeah. Yeah, I'm Susanta Rasnaik, attached to Department of Sociology. So I was invited by Mr. Dasun. Accidentally, we met at a conference there, University of Peradeniya. So 1 month or 2 months before. So then he invited me to have a kind of a workshop discussion on something like related to research methodology. So then I warmly accepted his invitation. So that's why I'm here today. So in my today's class, so so we have very limited time, 1 hour and 30 minutes. So within this very limited time, I will share some of the experience and some of the theoretical things related to research methodology. Specifically, I'll be focusing on research problem, formulating research problems and research questions. So hopefully you have at least a little bit of research methodology experience. So you have studied in classes. So what is a research, why we do research, etc. That general knowledge you may have, I assume. Is that so? Yes. Because you all are third-year students, no? Yes. So then definitely first-year students are also there. Right, okay, no problem. So we will discuss some basic level things. All right. If I move to the first slide, so this is an interesting title, Bridging Theory and Reality, Research in 21st Century. To me, this topic enlightens something like that research are very much important to build the 21st century society. Not only to build theories. Why we do research? Why do we need research? So it's a very general and simple question. Any idea? What is mean by a research? Yeah, anyone can speak. So this is experience sharing session rather than monotonous kind of a lecture. Okay, right. What do you mean by a research? What are the purposes of doing a research? Yeah. To gain an in-depth idea about a particular phenomenon. All right. Yes. Any other? Yeah, to answer for a particular problem. Yes, yes. Any idea? Voice? Shan, no? Krishan, yes, sorry. Krishan, do you have an idea about what research is? To solve, yes, because nowadays we are encountering number of problems, no? Problems are related to many various fields, maybe IT, maybe human relationships, maybe business field or consumer behavior or something like that. The problems are arising. So we need solutions, no? We need solutions. So therefore, research is very much important in the 21st century, not only to describe phenomenon theoretically, but also to find answers to those problems, right? So that's why the topic gives me within theory and reality. We need theory and reality. So I read this title from that perspective. In the when we try to develop the society in the 21st century, we need many more research findings and to address the problem ahead us. Right. With that kind of introductory note, we can move to our presentation. But research is a lengthy process, no? It's a lengthy process. Within an overnight, we can't produce research results or complete or comprehensive report based on your research data. It's a lengthy process. And also it's a scientific process. Scientific process, right? Because we are going to produce new knowledge. Creating or producing new knowledge is a process which consists of many steps. We have to pass few steps in order to create new knowledge or validate the existing knowledge, right? So my first few slides is about why do we need research. So already we have discussed why do we need research. One thing is to create new knowledge. So if the if the existing knowledge, body of knowledge is not sufficient to describe, to analyze the given phenomenon, so then we have to create new knowledge because society is changing rapidly, technology is changing rapidly. So within this changing context, we need new knowledge because we are encountering new social phenomenon in our everyday life. The way we deal in classrooms in 1980s is completely different compared to today, no? So today, teacher-student interaction is somewhat different compared to 1980s, right? So things are changing. Psychologically, economically, politically, technologically, things are changing every day. So anyhow, we have to deal with this change in society. We need new knowledge. We have to do research for building new theories to explain emerging social phenomena and even technological phenomena. So I'm sorry, because I'm from social science background, so then my examples will be related to social sciences. So I'll try my best to manage. Right, create new knowledge, update the existing knowledge. Of course, if the existing theories, existing concepts are not sufficient to describe today's phenomenon, we have to develop new concepts, new theories. Understand? For example, let's say in traditional society, the way the parenting style, how our parents take care of their child or children, quite different than today's, no? So then we need new theories, new concepts to describe today's phenomenon, right? So then we do research to update knowledge, existing knowledge. Informed decision making, as we discussed, we are not only focusing theory building, explaining, describing things, but at the same time, we are trying to develop solutions, find answers to what we are encountering today as problems, right? That is another aspect of why we do research. Validation of existing theory, which is also important. We need to, that is also something related to updating, but validation is something. We need to recheck it, whether the existing theories, concepts are sufficient and enough to explain the emerging phenomena. Thus, theory building is an important part of research. Theory building, right? Because we are going to produce new knowledge. On one hand, to describe emerging new phenomenon and to find solutions, right? Therefore, theoretical knowledge is important. Here, the theory building is not just mean that we are going to produce grand theories, right? So you may read and you are studying number of theories that are related to your particular fields, no? Right? Maybe you are learning about Abraham Maslow's theory of motivation, no? So the Maslow's theory may not be sufficient and may not enough to describe today's motivation, because we are dealing in technological world nowadays, no? So the Maslow produced that theory in 80s, 70s, or 80, as I remember, long before, which is not sufficient. But anyhow, still we use that theory to describe workers' motivation or consumers' motivation or whatever the motivation aspect. So we use Maslow's theory, no? Right? It means that we need theory to describe, to explain phenomenon. Theory building is an important part of our research. So we aim to produce new theory or to contribute to the existing theory. So you can add some part, new concept to the existing theory. Through your research, you are challenging the existing theory on one hand, or you are validating the existing theory, right? So likewise, research is an interesting task throughout the academic journey, I think, right? Without research, no academic institutes, no academic journey, no degrees, all right? That much, the research is that much important, right? So then it is about how theory building is important as a part of our research. Okay, right. What are the key components of our research? So list some of the components. Of course, I will tell you the first item, research topic. Topic is the first important element of a research topic. Then what are the other elements? Yes. Research problem, yes. Topic is there, then research problem, research questions, hypothesis. What else? Yeah. What are the other components from this side? Before moving to hypothesis construction or formulation of hypothesis, research questions, what do we do first? We call it literature review, no? Literature review. Yeah. So then we formulate the research problem. To address the research problem or solve the research problem, we create or we formulate research objectives or questions or hypotheses. Then we need the next step is the data collection, no? We have to gather information, data collection, and then we need to analyze data and interpret data, right? So see how it's a long process, no? Starts with a topic, which is, I mean, topic in the sense you have an idea about to do something academically. For example, let's say, so now you are in front of the Apico supermarket. So when you are going there, different people come and, you know, have you observed there? This is a nice place to have some observations, consumers' behavior, huh? Right? So it's a wonderful place. Go and sit 1 hour there and observe how people are behaving in front of the cashier and in front of the, you know, places where foods and other things are stored, right? Different behaviors. Okay. So let's say some people just come and quickly, buy their things, collect their things, and they go. At the same time, some people come and they have plenty of time there, or I mean, they are leisurely collect things, no? Right? How have you thought of why people go for shopping? Is it only for buying things, or is it for something the other purposes like kind of their habits, or kind of a lesser activity, or kind of, yeah, nowadays it becomes like a leisure activity and hobby, right? Some people usually go to supermarkets as a family trip nowadays, the part of their family trip, dinner out and lunch out. So they arrange, and one place may be a supermarket, right? So, right, likewise, so you will observe number of consumer behaviors. So then that is the idea of doing a research. Why do people go to supermarket without going to the open market, the groceries? Nowadays, normally we all are moving to supermarkets gradually, no? So still, it's sure that I'm sure that you all are going to normal groceries as well, but there is a trend. People are moving to supermarkets. Why it happens? Sometimes nearby shops are available. You are not interested, go there. You may have a number of answers to my question. So then I mean, we have a research idea here, why people do not go to nearby groceries while going to supermarkets. What's the motivation? What are the psychological motivations? What are the economical motivations? You want to do a small research, right? Very recently, we got a, in the sense, one of our final year students was invited by, I'm not telling the institute, one of very famous textile shop in Kandy. So they were describing that student showed me the letter, in kind of invitation letter to do a research. That letter says regularly now their customer basis is declining gradually. So they want to do a research. Why? You understand my point? So these are some questions, right? Why the earlier customer base is declining now, right? It's a marvelous research question from their side. I mean, from their perspective. Likewise, you may encounter a number of research ideas first. Then you want to do a research systematically. You may have general perception or answers to the question, but they are not scientific evidence. They are just, we call it common sense. Of course, common sense is important part of the research process, but we cannot provide scientific answers through our common sense. Research is a scientific process that aims to solve problems scientifically. Therefore, we have to follow a systematic process to answer the research question. Right. Okay. So then we have a topic, and then the likewise. So if you go back to the question or the activity, list some of the components: topic, literature review, and then the research problem, research objectives, questions or hypotheses, data collection, data analysis, report writing, conclusion, all the things are part of the research process. Right. Now, this will be an interesting question. According to you, so if you have read research papers and if you have done some small research even, so you may have the answer for this question. What is the most critical component if you want to build a new theory or new knowledge? I have given 3 answers here. So according to your understanding, what is the most important thing? Research problem, literature review, objectives or questions? Yes? Anyone? All are difficult components. Is that so? Yes. And important, yes. My answer is, can you guess my answer? Research question, research questions, literature review. From this side? Objectives, okay. All the components. Yes. My answer is research problem. Research problem. Right? Research problem. Because we are going to produce a new theory. Why we need a new theory? Because the existing body of knowledge is not sufficient to explain or describe the concerned phenomenon. If it is the consumer's motivation to come to a particular shop, so if the given motivation theory is not sufficient, we need to create a new one. So without a specific focused research problem, we can't produce new knowledge. Why? Because we derive or develop the research problem based on the existing literature. First, we have to read what are the available literature and what they say. Right? If we know about the existing knowledge, body of knowledge, then only we can find out the gap of the existing knowledge, which is called research problem. Research problem. So then you are going to solve that problem based on some scientific steps, which means that you are going to add new knowledge to the existing body of knowledge. You can't do that without having a clear and focused research problem. Right? In the theory building process, building theory and reality, today's oral title, without having a focused research problem, we can't produce a theory. We can't produce new knowledge to the existing knowledge. Then the most important part is knowing the gap of the existing body of knowledge. Understand? So to do that, we need to read what the existing literature say. Then you will encounter what are the gaps of the knowledge, existing knowledge. You are going to fill the gap thereafter, focusing on the research steps of the research process. Understand? So therefore, my answer is research problem. Of course, literature review, research objectives, questions, hypotheses, and all the components are very, very important in the research process. But to start your research journey, first you have to have a research idea. area of study, topic to study, right? Your concern may be a kind of an important question. For example, let me to refer my own experience. I did my PhD thesis on deliberate self-harm among young people in Sri Lanka, right? Deliberate self-harm among young people in Sri Lanka. So I started, initially, I had a research kind of idea. I don't say researchable idea. So let's say I have an idea. I had an idea like this. One day, I met one client. He, let's say, he had some issues, personal issues, and some psychological issues as well. He said he had tried to die by several times, and still he is having the sort of suicidal feeling. Then I was talking to that person, and then it was a lengthy discussion. Then at a point he said, after the first attempt, he did not went to his family. He did not come to classes and meet his student, his colleagues, friends, because of shame, he said. Right? Then I want to study, after a suicidal attempt, how do people, young people, reconnect, reintegrate with society? What are the challenges they encounter, face, after returning from the hospital? From my side, it's a marvelous research question to me. Yeah? Understand? How do they reconnect, reintegrate with society, returning from the hospital? Then I started literature review. Literature review says a lot of facts. There are number of theories and number of studies. Most of the time, existing literature says about the risk factors of suicide. Risk factors. What are the factors that affect suicide? Very limited attention has been paid to talk about social integration after returning from the hospital. So then I wanted to study this research problem. Right? So likewise, so you need to have a research idea first, topic first, and then do a comprehensive literature review, and then find the existing gaps. You will encounter a number of existing gaps. You can't fill all the gaps through your own study. Right? Your study may focus only filling one available gap. You can't fill all the gaps. Can you fill? No. We need multiple research to do that. Then important thing is, you will have a research idea first, and then have a comprehensive literature review. Try to identify, you have to synthesize, summarize the existing literature, what it says, and what are the existing gaps. So then you are going to fill the existing gaps, maybe one or few gaps. Understand? Right. So the most important component of the research process is identification of research problem. To me, somebody will say, no, research problem identification is not the important thing. Is literature review is the number one. Yeah, maybe from that person's point of view, literature review would be the most important. But I'm pretty sure that many people will say, yes, research problem is important. Why? Because we are going to contribute to the existing knowledge. We are going to construct a new knowledge, right? We are going to challenge the existing knowledge or validate existing knowledge. So therefore, identifying a research problem is very much important. So on the other hand, it says research problem is the gap of the existing body of knowledge. Without knowing about the existing gaps, no way to do a research, right? So we can go ahead a little. Yeah. So research problem then. Formulation of research problem is the most critical step of a research, as I was describing, right? Well-designed, defined research problem provides clarity, focus, direction to the study. Yes, because if you know the gap, there is a nice saying in our local language, and it says, අපි මොකක්ද කියන්නේ මේ දැන ගියොත් කතරගම නොදැන ගියොත් අතරමඟ කියලා කියලානේ. So if you know the road to go to Kataragama, so we can go there without any hesitation, any challenge, we can go there. Otherwise, we will encounter some difficulties, problems. Because there are a number of roads to go to Kataragama. No? If you start from Kandy, people will say different roads to go there. But if you are clear enough about each and every road and the barriers and the conditions of roads and etc., so you know the cost and you can calculate everything there. Then it is the part of Dhanavyu. Because you know where we are going, what are the challenges we will encounter, right? Research is like that journey. Because we know what is the gap that we are going to fill, right? Therefore, well-defined research problem is very much important in this journey. Try to have a well-defined research problem first. In order to have a well-defined research problem, you need to read more. You need to explore what are the existing literature. Again, it is a difficult task because thousands literature you will find. Can you read all? No, it's not a, practical thing. Thousands of articles you can just get some articles from Google Scholar or different search engines. Hundreds of articles will find. No, we don't have time to read all. We can't read even all. You will encounter number of literature sources, books, book chapters, newspapers, articles, magazines, websites. How you can read all? Then you have to filter your literature, narrow down your literature. So we will have another day discussion on how to do an effective literature review. It's something different. So my honest feeling and honest advice is limit your literature review to recent studies. My supervisor advised me focused on last 10 years literature. Don't go beyond. For some studies, yeah, we may have to go beyond, because if you are doing something related to history, definitely you have to read the early history, literature as well. But it's not the common thing that always that we do. My advice is limit your literature review let's say last 10 years, 8 years, 5 years. It depends on the number of studies you find. Limit your time, right? So don't worry about that. You understand? Yeah, which is important. Narrow down your research into a particular time period, literature review, right? Then what is a research problem? Already I have given the answer. This is very often students find difficult in creating or formulating their research problem. They are confused when we ask what is a research problem. So they say something related to topic or research question or study area or area of study to be covered, something like that they get. But none of these are the research problem, which is something different. Topic, you have an idea about what the topic is. You can fine tune your research topic. That's something different. Initially, you will have an idea about research. Study area. Study area in the sense, not the geographical setting. Let's say consumer behavior, right? Someone can do a very good study on ChatGPT, plagiarism, something like that. That's the initial research area. Like I said, deliberate self-harm among young people. Because deliberate self-harm is a broad area. Then I wanted to narrow down it. So then I focused only among young people. Young people are the people, I mean, the age range is 15 to 24. So likewise, so we gradually narrow down our focus. That is very important when we formulate a research problem and even finding a research topic, right? So students usually struggle to define research problem as when we read their dissertations. So I'm pretty sure that if we read 100 dissertations, only very few people, very few students clearly express their research problem. Other all have described something related to topic, something related to research question, something related to a study area, something like that. There is no clear research problem. If you do not have a research clear or focused research problem, no need to read thereafter. And my usual practice is I first see the introduction, literature review, and research problem and objectives and so and so. So if they have not well defined them, I'm not wasting my time to read the rest. Why I should spend my time? Because they have not done their first part of the process comprehensive. Understand? So therefore, this is a systematic process. It's like a chain. If you have a nice research topic, then you will have a nice literature review, and then nice research problem, and then well-defined objectives, questions, and so on. If you do not follow these steps properly, at the end you cannot contribute to the existing knowledge. You cannot build a theory. You cannot add new knowledge to the body of knowledge, right? But research problem is none of these. Then what? This is a kind of scientific definition. In many ways, the research problem is the nucleus of research project, according to Alan Brennan. A research problem is defined or clear expression, statement about an area of concern, a condition to be improved upon. The gap. Simply, it is the existing gap of the gap of the existing body of knowledge. Then we are going to fill that gap. Or troubling question that exists in scholarly literature. Troubling gaps, questions of the existing literature. When I was reading literature, many this is also important when you go for your literature review. try to read as much as local literature. In the sense, if you are doing your research on the local context, phenomenon which is related to the local context, international literature may not be supporting you. Why? Because the socio-cultural contexts are different. No? For example, let's say the suicide in European countries and Western world may not be the same like in Sri Lanka. That's what a major gap that I encountered through the literary review. I challenge the Western theories, psychological theories are not sufficient to describe suicide in Sri Lankan context. I challenge. Earlier, there were some attempts to actually challenge in psychological theories. That's one. That's very interesting kind of argument, no? I say the existing Western psychological theories are not sufficient to describe the phenomenon of suicide or deliberate self-harm in Sri Lanka. We need new theories. Locally developed theories are needed to describe this phenomenon. Culture-sensitive theories are needed. Because why? I argue that most of the suicide attempts and suicide cases in Sri Lanka death by suicide are not caused by psychiatric problems. In the Western world, suicide is a synonym to psychiatric problems like depression, severe depression. But in Sri Lanka, that is something different. Right? Especially when it comes to young people, even if they quarrel with their parents and family members, so they will try to do something, they are trying to give a message of, a lesson to their parents. So then they drink Panadol or some other, things, attempts. I studied 20 cases. Out of that 20 cases, 16 were because of intimacy-related problems, breaking up of love affair or extramarital relationships or extra relationships, something like those are the reasons. Then I challenge, psychiatric problems are not very much significant to describe deliberate self-harm in Sri Lankan context. We need culturally, locally developed theories. Right? All right. So my point is, try to read local literature first as much as possible. Especially when it comes to social phenomena, this is important because if we are studying something related to social and cultural background, we need to read local literature first. If the local literature is not sufficient to describe certain things, then you can focus on international literature as well. However, if you are studying something like computer science or something like biology or any technology or apart from social sciences, my argument is not valid because science is common everywhere in the world, no? So then even international literature will support you, right? Depending, right? Anyhow, this definition is also gives an idea about what is a research problem. Then it is simply the gap of the existing body of knowledge, right? We are trying to fill these existing gaps or a particular gap, right? So what then is a research problem? A research problem is the gap in existing knowledge, right? Hopefully you understand. Yes? Okay, right. This means there is a particular area over which we do not have sufficient coverage in literature. Yes. You read 100 articles, 100 books, 100 magazine papers. 100 websites. They all talk about these particular areas, but still this area is lacking. Previous researchers have not described this particular thing sufficiently, right? So therefore, the problem is the gap in existing knowledge. So far, do you have any questions or need more clarifications? Any things to ask? You are clear. Very good. I'm happy. Okay. Not many people have studied this particular area, an area which is important, but there aren't enough scholarly publications on it. So then you have a clear idea about what the research problem is, right? Previous publications are not sufficient to describe this particular gap. They have not studied it scientifically much. Then there is a big gap in the available literature. So then you are going to fill it. This is our research effort, right? All right. Then how do we find the knowledge gap? This is the important thing. Already I have described certain things. Literature review the only way to find the existing gap. You have other alternatives. Even you get the support of ChatGPT, it provides a literature review first. Then it gives the research problem. It search number of publications and online literature, websites and all the things. Then it encounters the existing gap, right? So therefore, literature review is must, essential. Without a comprehensive literature review, you can't go forward. Understand? So therefore, the literature review is a must, and it should be an interesting task. Because why? You are curious to fill the gap. Then you should know about the existing things, no? Existing knowledge. Right? But the previous researchers tell about this phenomenon. Right? Okay, right. So how to do this? Read as many publications as possible and find what other scholars have found out about the topic, about the phenomenon that you are going to describe. Here the many publications means at least focusing on a particular time period. Try to familiar with the existing literature, right? Which is important. Don't read, especially you need to pay attention on internationally recognized journals, journal papers, right? Journal papers are very, very important part of your literature review. And internationally recognized books, they are also important, right? Now the sources are available. Wherever you go, you can search literature, no? Previously, we have to walk to the, had to work to the physical places like libraries. Nowadays, even you are traveling, when you are traveling, you can find things and read. It is important. The technology always supports you, but don't manipulate it. That is the problem nowadays we are facing, no? Right? Okay. Read as many publications as possible and find what other scholars have found out. What other scholars find out. Thematically organize the literature review. Okay, so let's say you read 100 papers or 50 papers. 100 is too big, no? Let's say you read 50 papers. Can't you categorize them into different themes? Of course can. Right? Because the interest of a particular author may not be the same when it comes to the other author. Based on the researcher's interest, the key message of the article, key problem of the article or the research, you can categorize them thematically, right? Which is important when you do a literature review. Nowadays, ChatGPT does it for you, but don't do that, right? Then, because we are going to do a marvelous job, no? Contribute to the existing body of knowledge. So then you should familiar with the existing body of knowledge first. Though ChatGPT familiar with the existing body of knowledge, you are distinct then. So we should not do that. We have to read, we have to familiar, we have to absorb what the existing literature says, right? Thematically organize the literature review. Give a short summary of existing literature. Then you should develop a summary on existing literature. I had time to read your symposium proceedings. So I was just reading one or two just abstracts and I quickly went through an article. It was nicely describing about body shaming, which is something related to sociology and psychology. So then I was interested in reading it, right? It has nicely pointed out what are the existing gaps of the body of knowledge. Then the reader, you can, your reviewer, let's say, you cannot publish a paper without comprehensive review process, no? Right? Though you develop the manuscript, it goes to 2 or 3 reviewers. If you are targeting an international level journal, high quality index journal, my often experience is we are sad to say that your paper is rejected or not up to the standard. That is very often experience, which means that of course, that's a painful experience. We don't like to have that kind of a rejection type of messages, no? That's painful, shocking, but that is important part of your academic life, right? So what I'm going to say is, if you do not show what is the existing gap of the body of knowledge, the reviewer will reject your paper. You have not nicely derived the problem, right? You may have nice data, nice interpretation, nice analysis, but still something is missing. You are not contributing to the existing body of knowledge, then you do not have chance to get it published, right? Because reviewers look at the contribution of this article, contribution of this piece of research to the existing body of knowledge. If it is innovative, something new to the existing, then you will have an opportunity to get it published. Most of the rejections happens because of lack of contribution to the existing body of knowledge, not because of the other technical or analytical problems, right? Recently, one of my friend got such an rejection, and she was so unhappy and worried about. But when I went through the reviewer's comments, it nicely described. She has not described and discussed enough what is the existing gap and how her article contributes to the existing body of knowledge, right? Therefore, short summary of existing literature is important before constructing new knowledge, because you know then what is the gap you are going to address, which is important. Argue that there is an area over which there is a gap in knowledge. You have to build up an argument, Gradually, you have to say this author and this particular school has studied these, and they have described this. Like you have to synthesize literature, and nicely you are showing the gap, which is simple. Write that you are going to cover this knowledge gap and how you are going to cover, which is the methodology, what we call. Tell the reader why filling this gap is important, which is also important. That's why we had an initial discussion. Why research? Not only for theory building, develop new concepts, but at the same time, we should contribute to find solutions to the problem. Right? Tell the reader why filling this gap is important. On one hand, filling this gap is theoretically important. On the other hand, practically, it will help policymakers, decision makers to find answers. Understand? So at the end of my PhD thesis process, I developed a model which is called Friendship Bandim model. Friendship Bandim model. Right? So I use the local term because people always pronounce it Bandim. So like, after such an incident, family members are also go through a kind of a traumatized experience, no? Because they are not expecting such an incident at their family. So then it's a very terrible experience to everyone in the family. So, and on the other hand, family members often blame the victim. You tarnish our image, honor of the family. If the person is a girl, wow, she's twice suicide. Because family thinks that she damaged the recognition or reputation of the family. However, friends are very supportive network for them. Right? According to my study, I found that than the family members, friends are the very supportive resource. Right? Therefore, my model says to develop their social interactions after returning from the hospital, to build up social well-being, we can use this model. Right? Model has few components. This is not the right time to describe my model, but which is called Friendship Bandim model. There are, service provider. If let's say you are the service provider, you are the affected person, I am the friend to you. So then we have a nice combination, which is targeting post-caring. Because there is a high risk of reoccurrence of attempts during the post-discharge period. My argument is we can reduce reoccurrence of suicidal attempts through building up their social well-being. To build up their or enhance their social well-being, we can use that model. That is my practical and theoretical contribution to the existing body of knowledge. Likewise, don't worry about the size of your research. Maybe BA level or small research, master's level research, PhD level research. We can't expect the same contribution, of course. You are the beginners. But you should follow these steps and think about, follow these steps. That is number one. And at the end of the day, at least you should have contributed minimally to the existing body of knowledge. Then you have done a nice job. Right? So otherwise, it's not a research. You are doing something, describing something, maybe nonsense. right? No, we need to produce good researchers. Through your first dissertation, even try to contribute to the existing body of knowledge. Try to solve a particular problem theoretically and practically. Then you'll be a good researcher in future, which is simple. Right. Criteria in selecting a good research problem. So these are some of criteria. You don't worry about writing these things. So I can give you the presentation. It's already I have given it. Good criteria which are keep in your mind when selecting a research problem. Let's say the researcher should have interest in the problem area. That is number one. If you are not interested in a particular research or research area, you can't move forward. That interest is important. What will be the next? That is why you should be curious to produce new knowledge, to discover new things. If the topic, the area you are going to study is not interest, don't do that. ගොඩාක් ළමයිට වෙන්නේ alright අපි dissertation වලට supervise කරනකොට masters වලට supervise කරනකොට ළමයි මුලින් එනවා ලස්සන research ideas එක්ක එනවා. හැබැයි අතරමඟට එනකොට reading එහෙම complex වෙනකොට ළමයි ඒක නිකන් boring තත්ත්වයටපත් වෙනවා. At the beginning they come up with very nice research ideas. But when we ask them to read more and more and more and more, so it becomes complex and they don't like to do that. So they want to do something easily, quickly. That is not the research process. You can't produce knowledge or do research quickly. ආපදානවා වගේ එහෙම research හදන්න බෑනේ නේද? කරන්න බෑනේ. So you can't do that. Right? It takes time. You have to follow the scientific steps. So then they are not interested in their topic. Thereafter, they can continue in rest of the steps of their research process. That's terrible experience. Therefore, at the beginning, talk to your supervisor and fine-tune a very nice, comprehensive topic, which will always be a motivation to do your research. If you are not interested in a particular topic, my supervisor gave me the topic, I don't like it. Don't say that. You should do your research concerning your research interest. Supervisor can support you to fine-tune certain aspects of research, that only. Right. The selected problem should be theoretical importance and fill gaps in the literature. No need to repeat again and again. I said you, theoretically, problems should be theoretically important in filling gaps. Otherwise, there is no research. Right? Data should be accessible. That is also important. Right? So you may have nice research problem, but data gathering is impossible, not accessible. Then how you are going to fill that? Again, it's a problem. What I was facing when I conduct my research, the research in suicide, field of suicide or deliberate self-harm is not an easy task, because it's always dominated by medical doctors, psychiatrists, right? So we will encounter a number of ethical problems when we collect data, right? So when I present my research proposal to the panel, many people ask, how are you going to collect data? How are you going to collect data? This is a sensitive topic. This is a sensitive topic. Yes, of course, it's a sensitive topic. If the researcher is smart enough, you can collect data. You can collect data. Yes, of course, I followed all the ethical process, right? Methodologically, I approached them because we can't directly talk to affected young people. What I did was I approached them through my contacts and service providers' contacts. That's the way I have found cases for my study. It was an interesting thing. If you're interested, then we can discuss it in a different day. Right. Peer recognition of its importance, which is important. When I was talking about, we had a nice friend gathering during my PhD research, even my MPhil time. Always colleagues are asking, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? So then we have to always describe our research interest, and I am going to do this. I am going to do this. At the beginning, it's boring, of course. Everybody asks, what is the research question? What are you going to do? Then I have to tell again and again, no, it's boring, but it's very important. Very important. Because their feedback will help you to polish your research problem. And if they are so interested in the topic, wow, it's wonderful, interesting. If someone says, oh, it's interesting research topic, how am I going to do? Read this literature as well. I know this. Likewise, your peers will support you, right? Therefore, that peer recognition of the importance of your research problem is very important indicator that says you have found a very important research problem, right? Therefore, peer feedback is important. The problem should enhance and broaden the researcher's knowledge and skill in research. Yes, as I told you earlier. So first, you should be curious in finding new knowledge. Yeah, to discover what happened next, because you are always motivated by the existing gap, and you are very, very, very keen to know about the phenomenon, right? You are going to discover things. That is one thing. And on the other hand, you will be innovative in data collecting and finding respondents, etc., etc. Right? One of the very positive comments that I received in my Viva voice examination of my PhD research, the innovative approach of methodology. Innovative approaches of methodology, because I was exploring social well-being of young people who have engaged in deliberative self-harm. Social well-being. So then I have defined and narrowed down social well-being into few aspects. I was exploring how they reconnect with family, how the family responds to them. That is one research objective. How the friends connect with them and how the friends support them. Another, how the workplace colleagues respond to them after returning from the hospital. Another important aspect, right? Likewise, I categorize social well-being into few, and then I show that existing literature, previous researchers have mostly popularly described on one hand the risk factors, yes, and methodologically what they have done, they have interviewed the affected young person, or maximum very few people, papers I found to parents. They have talked to their parents, researchers, right? What my approach was, I interviewed the affected person, a family member of the affected person, and the best friend of the affected person. So then nicely I can conceptualize social well-being, no? Because I'm talking about the family relationship, I'm talking about friendship relationship, and I'm talking about the person's experience as well. So that methodology was well recognized, and which was a very, Very, very positive comment I received. Likewise, what I'm going to say, if the research problem is very innovative one, it enlightens you on certain things, like methodologically, it enhances your skills to come up with new methodological solutions to address the problem. Because many people ask how you are going to collect information to address this. Then my approach was that, right? Likewise, so well-defined research problem is an asset in the research process, right? The research problem should sufficient magnitude and scope to fill the requirement that motive this study. Already we have discussed. The solution to the research problem should be practicable, and the research problem should have enough variables, which is also important. Nah? We have not described about so far. Variables. Your problem should have enough variables. Your research problem should not like yes, no answers type of research problem. Right? It should describe various things related to the matter you are going to investigate. Right? It means so you are investigating number of variables related to the research problem. It's important. Right? So I will show you an example. It should meet publication standard. As I told you previously, there is a high chance to get it rejected if you have not if you do not have a good research problem. Because it means that you are not contributing to the existing body of knowledge. So then why we are spending our journal space to you if you are not contributing to the new knowledge? If you are going to say the same thing repeatedly like the previous research, no need to publish it, no? Why should I spend my space of the journal? No. If you are saying something new, then you have a high chance to get it published. Understand? Right. So within this remaining time, I will show you one example. Dashun, I sent you a PDF consisting of 2 examples. So is it there? Or otherwise, so we can go with my pen drive. It's available in this. Oh. Yeah. You want? So meanwhile, if you have any questions or clarifications, so you can present it. All right. Yeah. It's not available in the desktop, no? There is a folder. All right. It is. All right. Now, this is a kind of a practical example. I have given you 2 research problems. I think the second one would be more easy to understand. Right? So you can read it actually. So otherwise, together we can go ahead. The topic is deliberate self-harm, which is my research topic, of course. Problem statement. You can see a problem statement. It's not a kind of a single question like how do people reconnect with society returning after returning from hospital or something like that. It's not a single research question. It's a statement. It's a description, right? You don't, worry about this because this is a PhD level length for undergrad level or mini research. So it depends. Yeah. According to scientific evidence, there is a greater risk of repeat in fatal suicide attempts in the post-discharge period. Right? There is a risk of repeat in attempts in the post-discharge period, especially during the first 2 years after the first attempt. Right? This is the way how I build up the existing knowledge. Research indicates that approximately 50% of youth who die by suicide have made prior non-fatal attempts. Right? Then likewise, so I have described, which indicates the importance of developing effective aftercare services in this critical period. Yes, no? If there is a risk of repeating attempt, especially during the first 2 years after the first attempt, there should be a comprehensive mechanism to address that. However, some scholarship found that repeat suicide becomes critical due to insufficiently developed aftercare services for the person whose lives were saved from suicidal attempt. So among multiple aftercare services, efforts to enhance social well-being would be effective in reducing repeat suicidal cases, because studies confirm that youth who have meaningful relationship with peers, parents, family, and community are less likely to have severe suicidal ideations than their counterparts. Right? Those people who do not have good relationship, meaningful relationship with their parents, family, colleagues, peers, there is a risk of attempts. So, but it happens the other way around if they have good relationship. That's what I am telling. Nevertheless, to be the best of my knowledge, there is no systematic study carried out how people who have engaged in suicidal behaviors reconnect, reintegrate, form, and share meaningful relationship with society following suicidal acts in Sri Lanka. You show the gap then. I clearly pointed out what is the gap. Then I say, right, as was mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, due to the socio-cultural significance of suicidality in Sri Lanka, existing sociological, social psychological, and medical anthropological studies have excessively described socio-cultural discourses of youth suicide. Socio-cultural reasons they have described. I don't want to describe reasons. I am going to address a gap, which is how they reconnect with society after returning from the hospital. Right? That is my gap. Right. Or the interplay of psychiatric and social dimensions in triggering youth suicidal behavior. Further, it must be noted that a majority of previous scholarship stated above has paid significant attention to describing the cultural play of young women's suicidal behavior. As I told you earlier, if the victim is a girl, then there are cultural taboos and restrictions. Right. The attention of early studies on the topic has been discussing the profound growth of crime and violence. So these are the major causes according to previous literature. Crime, growth of crime, violence, including self-violence, focusing on socio-economic and political changes that occurred, etc., etc. Those are the risk factors. Therefore, the exploration of how society responds to young people after a suicidal act, and how they reintegrate with family, peers, workplace, and society remains relatively untouched in the relevant literature domain. Also, social support received in recovering from the suicidal crisis is gray area in the literature. Some researchers have provided scattered accounts on this topic. Some have given some scattered, slightly they have described. For example, Udalagama, in a study carried out in rural village in Sri Lanka, described that friends, neighbors, relatives, and community associations have been necessary sources of social support for women who experience domestic violence, including self-violence. Self-violence is mean deliberate self-harm, to deal with the problem. Some have described actually, some have explored it a little bit. I have to say it as well because I should be honest in describing the gap. I should not say I am the first person going to discover this. No, be honest, right? So we have to recognize the contribution of previous researchers to the field. No, that is what we call academic integrity. Academic integrity. Don't say I am the only one person going to study this. No. Likewise, so then I have, against this background, this study attempts to fill this chasm of knowledge by focusing on a group of young people who have engaged in suicidal acts in Sri Lanka. Indeed, exploring this topic is vital in developing aftercare systems to assist them in recovering from the crisis and achieving effective social functioning in preventing suicide. More specifically, the study findings will help policymakers and practitioners deal with the risk of rising risk of mental health problems and suicidal vulnerability among the young caused by the ongoing economic crisis in the contemporary society. Focusing on the contemporary society, I say this is important, right? Then you can little bit check how I have said the research question. Don't miss or don't misunderstand. Research question and research problems are the same. No, they are two things. Now you have an idea about how to set the research question problem. Sorry, research problem. It's quite a big statement. You have to deal with previous literature and you have to describe the gap of the body of knowledge. And then you are going to say, what is the exact research question? So you have to nicely formulate the research question focusing on the gap. See, how do youth who have engaged in suicidal act experience social well-being in the post-discharge period in the socio-cultural context of Sri Lanka? Now the problem is clear and the question is clear, right? Likewise, formulation of your research problem and setting objectives or research question thereafter are very, very important steps of your research. You have a research idea now. Especially there are first year students and some are third year, first year. All right. When it's okay, it's better to have an idea even at the first year level, no? Then you know what is a research problem and how to do a research, at least. Right. That's one. What do you think? So should we continue further? No, I think the time is enough, no? It's 12, no? Yeah. With that note, I would like to wrap up my presentation. But if you have anything to ask, so I'm willing to answer. Yes? No ideas? No questions? Have you thought of a research? At least I'm happy. I'm happy if you have a research kind of interest now. If my presentation kind of motivation you to do a research, I'm happy with that point at least. You had an idea to do a research in future, right? Right. Don't do your studies just to complete your degree. Enjoy your academic journey, right? It's a marvelous experience of your life. Try to be a good researcher, good problem solver. Then the research is very important. All right. If you do not have any questions or clarification. So I would like to finish my talk. Have a nice day. Bye.